to the LA Jewish Film Festival opening night. It's so gratifying to see everybody turning out undeterred, unafraid. We're here together to celebrate Jewish culture in terms of one of the unique contributions of a lot of the Jewish founders to Hollywood and to the institution of film cinema. So that's part of the legacy that we take great pride in, and tonight we're thrilled that all of you could join us for another really interesting person. One of the lawyers of the person who's the subject of the film, he passed away, and his wife went to purchase a mausoleum for him. And I said to her, Georgina, a mausoleum, that's 16 graves. It's just you and your husband. She said, yes, Rabbi, but I have claustrophobia. So, but that whole history of the British invasion is captured here by a real visionary, and we'll celebrate that as well tonight. But I want to celebrate somebody super special who's the driving force for decades behind the LA Jewish Film Festival, the one and only, irrepressible, one-of-a-kind, phenomenal Hillary Hellstein. Let's get it.
Well, I want to thank the rabbi, and I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and welcome you to the 20th Los Angeles Jewish Film Festival. I guess that means next year we can finally drink legally. Did any of you get to walk Abbey Road out there? Yeah, good. It took 2 days to paint that thing. Did you see our beautiful cake from Hanson's? Yes, thank you. That was gorgeous. Did you enjoy some of the desserts from our sponsors, Factors and Earth Cafe? Yeah. Good. We're all ready to go. This last year has been a difficult one, and cinema often reflects the times. It has been the common thread that has carried us through challenging times. And in challenging times, music serves as a powerful tool for healing. It transports us someplace else, provides inspiration and comfort, and can be used to make an artistic statement. Cinema does the same. It opens hearts and souls and brings us together. With anti-Semitism on the rise, it is vital that our community stand in solidarity and come together for events like LAJFF today that enlighten, educate, and fight to dispel negative myths while encouraging meaningful dialogue. Cinema is a powerful tool for storytelling and an effective platform to build bridges of peace and understanding. So it touches me deeply to see so many people here tonight, and it feels so good to be sharing the love of movies and music with each other in an exciting program in this gorgeous theater. And we've got a thrilling film in store for you tonight and a stellar lineup of special guests. My role as the festival director came out of the need to tell important stories. All filmmakers have a story to tell, and the LA Jewish Film Festival is a showcase for great talent to share unique and important stories. 20 years ago, the vision to create something innovative, artistic, and educational in the Jewish community has now blossomed into an institution. The festival wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, and the help from our staff and volunteers, and the imagination and passion of many people. Our goal is to bring to the LA community the most compelling Jewish stories that connect us. And boy, do we have a great lineup of films for you this year. We would like to extend our deepest thanks to Rabbi David Barron and his staff at Temple of the Arts and the Savant with the Jewish Federation of Los Angeles for your long-time support and for this important cultural arts and community building program. We are honored to have with us the chair of the board of the Jewish Federation, Orna Waldens, who you will hear from shortly. We are grateful to the City of Beverly Hills for their support and friendship, including the Beverly Hills Mayor, Sharona Nazarian, JQ International, Jewish Free Love Association, our great security partner, Magen Am, and I would like to thank all our many dedicated sponsors, community leaders, and partners. We are grateful to all of you for your support in making this festival possible year after year. For another year, we are honored to be working with a dedicated community. Okay, we'll save that surprise for after. I'd like to introduce Mayor Sharona Nazarian and Vice Mayor John Mirisch of the City of Beverly Hills.
Good evening. How are you all doing? My theme for this year is unity. I believe that we are stronger when we focus on what binds us. Not just as a community, but as people who want peace, connection, and a hopeful future for the next generation. The City of Beverly Hills has always been a strong voice against hate, discrimination, and anti-Semitism. That's why for one of my mayoral initiatives, it's called Never Again is Now, because we always want to stand tall and stand proud. I want to invite all of you on October 5th, we will have an official groundbreaking for our October 7th permanent memorial site. It's going to be one of the first in the entire world, and we're so proud to be able to support that. And speaking of unity, if there's one thing that connects people across generations, backgrounds, and continents, it's film and music, especially the music of the Beatles. Yeah. Which brings me to a fun coincidence. Yesterday was World Beatles Day. Did you know that? And how fitting that tonight's feature film, Midas Man, tells the story of Brian Epstein, the visionary Jewish manager behind the Beatles' rise to fame. And in that film, we get to see one of our own Beverly Hills legends on the big screen, Jay Leno. He brilliantly brings Ed Sullivan to life. Jay, we're so lucky to call you a friend of Beverly Hills. You know, just a few weeks ago, we were able to celebrate Father's Day at Concord the Elegance at the car show, bringing Smile Style and a few classic engines to the celebration, and Jay was the star of that. So tonight we celebrate not only the magic of film, but also the incredible, legendary Jay Leno and the impact of Jewish culture on global storytelling. And before I close, let's not forget, Ringo Starr, a Beverly Hills resident, is celebrating his birthday next week. What better way to kick off the celebration than with this film and this amazing audience? Thank you all for being here, and happy belated World Beatles Day. And I'd like to invite my colleague to please come up.
Thank you so much, Mayor. And of course, a lot of you may know that we have a sculpture by resident Ringo Starr across from the wall of Sannenberg, peace and love. And that's a message also that Ringo not only sends out every year on his birthday, but we should be sending out every day. Okay, very briefly, I want to remark that Orna Wollins mentioned that AB 715 is a bill against awful ethnic studies curricula where Jews are often portrayed in the framework of oppressed and oppressor. We're working against that, and actually AB 715 is a bill to protect against that. So I also want you to know that the City of Beverly Hills, led by Mayor Nazarian, we have expressed our strong support of this bill and against ethnic studies curricula, which would be biased against the Jewish people, because we see the rot that has happened, unfortunately, in our K-12 schools and also at our universities, and we are actively trying to work against that. But now back to the movie. There's also a little bit of trivia that I wanted to mention, is that yes, Jay Leno plays Ed Sullivan, and as many people know, the Ed Sullivan Show marked sort of the explosion of the Beatles in this country. Well, what is not as well known is that leading into the Beatles' appearance, there's another Jewish connection. There was a Jewish comedy team that had the misfortune to be the lead-in to the Beatles' second set. And nobody was interested in their act, which had to be truncated. Well, those comedians were my aunt and uncle, Mitzi McCall and Charlie Brill. And as Uncle Charlie said, nobody ever laid a bigger egg than they did that day. So it's all a matter of timing. Fortunately, they did go on to have a career. My aunt sadly passed away last year at the age of 93, and I will be thinking about her so much, even though they're probably only in theory behind the scenes, they're not part of it. I will be thinking of her so much when Ed Sullivan comes up. And the one funny thing is, I guess my Uncle Charlie lent John Lennon, who I know is going to be here, lent him some change so we could buy a Coke. So anyway, those are the Jewish connections. Hopefully you will all enjoy this, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing it myself. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here and supporting this festival and Jewish stories and Am Yisrael. Thank you.
So, did you know that yesterday, June 25th, marked Global Beatles Day? Yeah. It commemorates the day in 1967 when the Beatles performed All You Need Is Love during the BBC's Our World broadcast, reaching a global audience. The anniversary celebrates the influential band's legacy, the impact on music and culture, and their message of peace, love, and unity. We'll celebrate it today. A day that somebody may want to hold your hand or ask you to please be true because they love you. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop. Okay, maybe not. I'm happy we were all able to come together and embark on this magical history tour. Okay, I'm really done. But none of this actually would have been possible without the vision of their Jewish manager, Brian Epstein. A visionary with an ear for music and an eye for style. And you'll learn tonight in the extraordinary film, Midas Man. We are deeply honored to have with us again, Brigit Grant, Joe Stephenson, and Jonah, and our honoree and special guest, the iconic comedian, writer, actor, and talk show host, Jay Leno, who plays Ed Sullivan. Jay has made us laugh and entertained us in a way that no other comedian has. He had 22 years alone at The Tonight Show, making him one of the longest-serving show hosts in history. In 2014, he was inducted into the Television Hall of Fame. So who else would be more suited than Jay to play the pivotal role of Ed Sullivan in Midas Man? And tonight, he's here with us. Once a Shabbos boy, a friend to the Jewish community and to Israel, we are honored to have with us Jay Leno.
Turn down for reverse mortgage. One down.
I just got back. I was entertaining the troops, which was fun because I didn't have to. I didn't have to leave Los Angeles. 5 years ago, I had to go to Barker Air Force Base in Afghanistan. Now I just go to Beverly Center. And I got a Cinnabon. Anyway, people wonder why am I here? I'm a Gentile. See, again, I don't like that word. It sounds so goyish. I just like Jews. It's real simple. I like the people. I like the culture. I was a Shabbos boy when I was a kid. I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood in Urshel, New York. The Polish people over there, the Jewish people, the Henrys were 2 doors down. And I would go on Shabbat, I would go turn out the lights for them. One day their son, rather than turn out the lights, threw a towel over the lamp. It caught fire. He said, "We got to get a Shabbos going." I said, "I'll do it." So I got that job. And then they would do things for us on Christmas, and we would do things for them for the Jewish holiday. It was just a wonderful way to grow up. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the culture. I enjoyed the people. I mean, I like Jewish people with all the adversity in the world. Boy, they just plow ahead. You know, I always see Jewish comedians complaining, but not real Jewish people. they don't complain. They get the job done. And the amount of accomplishments that the Jewish people have had, how many of them are actually in the world, is pretty amazing. So that's why I've sort of been made an honorary Jewish person. I've been to Israel a couple of times. And I really enjoy it, and that's why I'm here tonight. It's just the bonding of Jewish. I come from an Italian family, so I kind of know about that, the big family dinners. I hate to say it, our food is actually better, but that's okay. Medicine, and food, not so much. Anyway, this, I'm not sure why I got asked to play this part. They said, why don't you play Ed Sullivan? I said, I don't right sure. I don't do an impression of Ed Sullivan. But it was an English film, and they didn't really know who Ed Sullivan was. They just wanted someone who was a TV presenter. And that's what they have in England. They call them TV presenters. And that's why I was asked to do the part. So I thought I would just get horrified, I just get vilified for not doing an impression, but then he was actually pretty good. And this is really a cute movie. It's really sort of my life. I was 13 when the Beatles came to America. You know, my mother's from Brigit, Scotland, and my Aunt Nettie would go to Scotland. And in 1962, she brought back some Beatle records. I thought, Beatle record, what is that? You know, you never heard of the group. What is a Beatle record? And of course, I became the coolest kid in school because I had the only Beatle records. You know, they hadn't come to the United States yet, so that was pretty good. And I kind of had my mind into the Dave Clark 5. That didn't work out. Freddie and the Dreamers, no, sorry about that. So yeah, went with the Beatles. But yeah, so it was fun. I found this to be just a charming movie. Everybody, just to see that little slice of English life, how quaint it was, how innocent it was. I remember I worked with Chad and Jeremy early in my career. I can remember them. And they were touring with Tom Jones, getting $500 a week. They split. They went for like 7 shows. At the 7 shows, a show every day, and they got 500. And they were thrilled. You know, it was just unbelievable. So it was just a different time. But I think this film will take you back. It's nostalgic. There's not a lot of Beatle music in it because it's not that microphone goes right. So there's a lot of it. Hey, that kind of sound, oh no, it's changed there. You get 8 bars of, yeah, that's, oh no, that's not that song. But that's okay. It's okay. Everybody did a great job. And once again, you know, like my friend Elon says, if there's a Jewish event, yeah, I'll just show up. Thanks everybody. Thanks for the award.
So on behalf of myself and the Beverly Hills City Council, we're absolutely delighted and honored to present you with this proclamation in your honor. Thank you so much for everything that you do for our community. And thank you for being a part of it, and thank you for everything that you did at the car show.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Compare the two.
Yeah, well.
And we also have one for Hillary and the 20th anniversary, so Hillary.
Experienced audience reaction to the film before, but we would, in the audience, would like to know a little bit about how you came to make the film. So, Brigit, it starts with you. So, can you give us just a little headlines about how this came about?
Very much what you said. They decided that it was Brian was an unsung hero, wanted to make a film about it. Producers that I had worked with before, and asked me to do it. And as you rightly pointed out, he is someone that, you know, that there's been little attempts in smaller films for him to appear, and the series, a British TV series. But overall, his story hadn't been told, and it's interesting that at this point, when they're about to make the 4 films
And before I come to Joe, I'd like to ask you, in writing the film, I mean, we all know, especially an audience in Los Angeles, there are quite a few folks from the creative world, and they know there's always a challenge writing a story, particularly a biographical film, because, as was mentioned at the beginning, everyone has familiarity. If you're writing about total unknowns, you've got a blank page, you can do whatever you want. But everybody brings their knowledge, their assumptions to it. So how did you go about addressing that challenge, knowing that you've got people saying, oh, well, that didn't happen, or this happened at a different date? How did you approach them?
Yeah, I mean, it's a minefield. Anything that's vaguely attached to the Beatles is a minefield, because there are so many experts and everybody takes ownership of it. I mean, I spent my entire working life being a journalist, and you interview a lot of people and you build a picture, you tell their story. I've been telling people's stories forever. And so with Brian, I met members of his family. I had a lot of meetings with his first cousin, Basil, who I spent time with, and he really built a wonderful picture of Brian. So I felt that I knew him. And I didn't sit in my office late at night. I was you, I was Paul, I was Brian. You become all those people when you're writing it, like they would be talking to each other. But I felt very passionately about Brian because he just felt very warm to me, so that's how I did it.
Now, Joe, this is an evening where we're celebrating Brian, so we don't want to go necessarily deep into the weeds of everything that happens on the film, but we all know that with every creative project, even the most successful project from day one, there's always challenges that happen, but the beauty of that is that the vast majority of those challenges that happen in private. But when a film goes through a bumpy patch, and any number of successful films have been through a bumpy patch, it gets public, and that must make it a little more difficult. So you came onto this film, you were the third director on the film. So how did you deal with that? Because that puts some pressure on you.
It does. I think that I tried not to really think about it. I mean, the main thing was that there had been a few scenes shot already. And so that obviously, as a director, when you're coming in, you have to find your own language, your own way into the story, through someone else's thing, because we know we're going to use this scene. So I'm going to have to now think about how that works, how I'm going to make the film mine through that prism. So it's it was an interesting journey. But really, it could have been a lot more painful than it was. We only had a very short amount of time in prep, but that time was aided by the fact that Brigit had been on for so long, and she became my resource of everything Brian. Along with Jacob, who had already shot a scene. And so it was all there waiting for me, and there was a wonderful cast attached, and all people to bring on who were a joy. And so it became, I don't know, it was a fun ride in the end. It was a tough one, and it's not one necessarily, I would never necessarily want to take over from a director again.
Were there scenes shot that you had to be married to whether you liked them or not? And was there parts of the script that was absolutely locked that you had to stay with whether you liked it or not? Or did you have a bit of a free hand in changing things if they didn't meet the vision that you wanted to bring?
A mixture of both. There were scenes that I would have liked to have kind of gone and kind of had an imprint on, but we didn't have the scheduling at the time. Then, having said that, though, they shot a lot of things that were from an earlier version of the scripts that was much bigger, much wider, and so a lot of that didn't end up in the film. So I could say, no, we're not going to do that, we're not going to use that, but I'm okay using this. And so, yeah, there were decisions that I could make that would help the journey, but it was not a simple one, and it was a puzzle constantly.
It was a jigsaw puzzle, yeah. and some juggling. Jonah, as an actor, I mean, every actor that has a part to come to grips with and find the character, it's one thing when it's a fictional character, but when you as an actor have to portray something and you know the audience is bringing expectations, visual, vocal, and so on, how much more of a challenge for you as an actor is that when you, as opposed to playing a fictional character, nobody has any expectation? What was that as a challenge for you?
Yeah, it was a big challenge. The first time was just getting out of my head, because it's huge shoes to fill. I was a huge Beatles fan and a very big John Lennon fan. But I've also been lucky enough to play a lot of real people. Actually, funny enough, I've played mostly real people in my career, so that's just coincidence, or maybe, I don't know, I have a morphing face. But I really enjoyed that part of it, what you mentioned, there's the mannerisms and the people know the way he talks and the way he moves and everything. And I tried not to think about what other people would think. I tried to just think about how does John make me feel when I'm watching him sing or in an interview. And I just tried to bring half of myself to what my version of John would be and try and give him justice. I played in the movie as well, so I focused a lot on the music and how John played the guitar and all of that stuff. But yeah, always a challenge, and I just tried to forget it was such a big deal.
Did you watch a lot of either documentary footage or the Beatles films to look for those mannerisms and the vocal tics and so on?
Yes, that was a huge part of my process, which was a very enjoyable one. I can't say it was homework, it was very fun. Just watching anything I could, any documentary. I started to get obsessed with trying to find the Beatles when they didn't know the camera was on, because I mean, obviously, we all, like right now, I know that there's an audience, and when you're on camera, usually you know you're on camera, and people being interviewed have their interview head on. So I was like, how can I try and find John when he's a little bit unaware? And I found these amazing videos on YouTube. Some channel has compiled the in-between takes of a recording. Let's say at Abbey Road, George Martin would just keep it rolling. They don't do that anymore, but they would often keep the microphones rolling. And I would listen to them ordering their sandwiches, talking about tea and making funny voices. And I really found a good anchor there because they genuinely didn't even remember that they were being recorded. So I tried to find stuff like that.
Actually, now Brigit, one of the things that I've had the benefit, I think, of living in America for over half of my life, and I learned when I came to America that there seemed to be a greater appreciation for the Beatles and Brian in America than there was in our homeland. And I don't know that during the 60s the Beatles were gods, but during the 70s and 80s there seemed to be a sort of backlash in some of the media, and the Beatles weren't so appreciated. And so I'm wondering whether that was something that you looked through that prism, that there wasn't quite that full appreciation as there ought to have been for the Beatles for a period of time in Britain.
I come to it sort of blinkered because I'm married to a Beatles fanatic, so that never happened in our house. And also spending time in Liverpool doesn't change. You go to Liverpool, and when you spend time there, it's in their DNA, the Beatles. It's just every part of it, and I always feel. I mean, we went past Abbey Road the other day, and admittedly, there were a lot of foreigners there and a lot of London people going, get out of the way. But basically, they're stepping onto the zebra crossing. The whole, it's a constant. I do think that it's there. And since they've come back now, with now and then that released and everything, it feels like they're in our, they're certainly back. They're back, I should say. They're back. Yeah.
Now, Brigit, Jewish, so you have a certain sensibility. Joe, you're not Jewish. Jonah, you're not Jewish. So there are those two themes in Brian's life of coping, because he was not religious, but he was very proud of being Jewish. He was culturally Jewish and spiritually Jewish. He just wasn't very observant. And he was gay at a time, I tried to explain to people, he was gay at a time and Jewish at a time when those weren't the words used to describe Jewish or gay people. The words were rude and defamatory. And he had to deal with all that. You can talk to the gay aspect. Tell me first of all about the Jewish aspect. Were you familiar with that kind of oppression on Jews in the same way that gay people had that oppression in Britain? Were you familiar that Jews grew up in that era with an oppressive force?
I was certainly aware of it, and I think that when you look at those periods of history, I think if you're part of a minority in any way, if you've ever been part of a group of people who've been oppressed, I think you see it in a group of people and you go, I know what that is, and I know what that feels like. And so, while obviously it's not exactly the same thing, there is a relationship there. And it's something that, I mean, my second film I was about Ian McCann, and he talked about how when he was growing up as a gay man, he didn't have even a word for it. It was just not said. And so, I think that you just kind of get a sense of it and understand it, and just kind of, you just have an affinity with people who have been through that. And I think anybody who's ever been judged for who they are and what they believe, it's all in the same world.
Do you, and the aspect of we're in a comparatively, well, I say we're in a comparatively enlightened time compared to how it was in the 1950s and 1960s, when it was illegal, ironically, just before Brian died, the law changed in England and Wales. But even when the law changed, that didn't change the stigma and the nasty attitudes. Those still stay there. The law changes, doesn't change people's ways. How important was it for you to convey that oppression on LGBTQ people and how that was, and what an audience should take away in terms of today?
I mean, one of the things that always fascinated me about people, gay men particularly at that time, is that they did have a tendency to achieve quite a lot, because they would usually, because they didn't have to private life, they would spend a lot of their time focusing on the work, focusing on other areas of life, and other parts of the world that they could be a part of and join, and be seen as one of. And so, the whole thing, I just kind of feel like at this time right now, it's absolutely vital that we look back and we understand the journey and understand how we got to where we are today, and also how easy it is to go backwards. And I think you can see that with the way that things are in certain countries, and the way things are changing, and the way people have to keep fighting back. And I think the film's a great tool to be able to go, look what it was like. I honestly don't think that Brian would have died if he lived in the world that we live in today. Because his obsession, he would have a partner, he would find comfort and love in a different place. And he probably wouldn't have had to work as hard, therefore wouldn't have turned to the uppers and the downers. And I think that's an incredible story that doesn't get told often enough, and that people need to be reminded of. Yeah.
Well, for somebody who helped bring so much joy to the world, he wasn't able to find joy in his own life. He was forced into being secretive, and all went with that. Jonah, growing up, you're younger than me, well, everybody's younger than me, but Jonah, growing up, I'm always curious, especially you being a fan of the Beatles, I'm just going to throw this question at you. I've always thought it must be strange to grow up after the Beatles, long after the Beatles, and hear the music, but if you don't necessarily hear it in sequence, and if you hear Abbey Road first, and then you hear Please Please Me, you must think, what the hell's going on? Tell me about when you first became aware of the Beatles, and especially about John Lennon.
Well, when I first became aware of the Beatles, I was a very young lad, learning to play the piano, probably before I could even talk properly, and Let It Be was, I think it may have been the first time I ever learned, it's triads, it's not the simplest song, but it's simple and it moves in quite an easy way, and they often do teach people that song when they learn to play piano. And I like that song, so that's my first memory of the Beatles. And I think what caught me, funny enough, more before John was Paul, and his music, because I really loved, and I still love, The Long and Winding Road. I remember hearing that song when I was young, and you know, at a young age, music moves you. It's quite a memorable feeling, and I remember that song moving me, and not even really knowing why, and I got into them more and more. I've always been told from a young age that I looked like John Lennon and resembled him. I have a twin brother actually, he's here in the audience, and he, for some reason, hardly ever gets it. We share a face, so I don't really know what that's about. But that led me to read a lot of his books, and I fully fell in love with him then. And then it wasn't just John's songs in the Beatles, but I also really started diving into his own music after the Beatles as well. And so, yeah, I was a fan, and became even more of a fan after booking the movie, because I was given actual time and money to just dive in, and it was amazing. It was really, I enjoyed it. It was a dream come true.
Yeah, it was really cute when they were the band, because you know they all played and they played, and it was amazing. But when we were filming it, and if you went wandering upstairs, and they were sat about together, just playing Beatles songs, being John and Paul, and it was like you were watching them. It really felt like you'd walked into the rehearsal. It was beautiful. Their rhythm with each other was amazing. It really.
We didn't get the chance to play any Beatles songs, so any chance we got, we would be playing Get Back, or we were playing something we'd be jamming away.
Secretly.
Brigit, speaking as a Jewish woman,
No.
what is it about Jewish women that they are so attractive to Beatles? I mean, Paul's married 2 Jewish women, Ringo's married to a Jewish woman. What is it about you beautiful Jewish women?
They make great Friday night dinners. I don't know. It's the soup.
I once got told off at a reception I'd organised by Paul because I was serving smoked salmon, and Paul shot me a look as if, you know the rules, Martin, what's all that? But there you go, yes, but Paul has shown up for services with Nancy. I know he's done that. I know once we finish this little conversation, I know, Jonah, you're going to delight us musically, is that correct? Are you going to in a moment's time?
I may do, yes.
You may do. You might be cajoled into this. To wrap this up, I'd like to just ask each of you, what are the plans now for the film with getting it distributed, which is not always the easiest thing, with a smaller scale indie film. It's not a multi-million-dollar budget, high-budget film. So just tell us, please, Brigit and Joe, particularly, what are the plans on the distribution of the film? How are people going to see it beyond this evening's show?
Well, I think it really comes down to building buzz. We've got more festivals, so it'll go on as festival journey, and I think that really it's going to be about building buzz. We'll have people talk about it, and hopefully people will respond to it, and then out of that, hopefully it will land in some theatres, in select cities, I'm sure, but and then available obviously elsewhere.
Select but discern.
We've got a one, yes, because we have a wonderful friend here that's going to send it on its way. Neil Friedman, who's here tonight, and we're very excited about that. And you're all going to write to all the multiplexes and request that it comes there.
I'd like to summarise what you've done with this film with an observation for us to take away with us. The Beatles changed our world, but only after Brian changed their world. And on that note, thank you very much. Thank you.